we are going to be starting giveaways. This includes USA gear, Hawaii gear, a lot of giveaways. The first thing we'll be handing out is
Gage Max Joe, Gage Max and Joe, Gage Max Joe, Gage Max and Joe, YouTube live show with Gage Max and Joe. We're the fired up and ready to go. Gage Max and Joe, Gage Max Joe, Gage Max and Joe, Gage Max Joe, Gage Max and Joe, YouTube live show with Gage Max and Joe. We're the fired up and ready to go. Gage Max and Joe.
And we're back. Today is Thursday, April 16th. We're here to talk volley. Y'all are here to be entertained. Let's get this show on the road. But before we go that, Joe, how we doing?
Doing great. Good day for it, baby.
Fired up, ready to go?
Fired up.
That's like the
As the song says.
Maxwell Quincy Rosenfeld, how are we feeling today?
Never better. So far, best day of my life I've ever had.
That's what I like to hear. We got a great show for you guys today. We're going to have Erik Shoji, national team libero on later.
Here we go.
We'll talk about life in Russia and what it's like being a professional libero. But before that, we're going to our first segment. Jock Duck.
Shuck
Duck. Jock Duck. Shuckity boopity boppity jockety dockety. Okay.
Let's do it.
So we have a hot take for us today. With the NCAA allowing seniors to come back, the rosters will expand. So now we're going to ask ourselves this question, this hot take here, this chalk talk here. Does it make sense for NCAA men's volleyball programs to keep an extended roster?
So I'll start this one. We University of Hawaii, we always big on the Ohana and making sure that everybody's really part of the team and feeling welcome. And so for me, it's kind of hard to explain this, but from a coaching perspective and from a program perspective, it makes absolutely no sense to be keeping 28, 29-man rosters. And I know a lot of coaches are going to try to justify that by saying that, all right, they had a senior that did a lot for the program, means a lot. And from a leadership perspective, I think that's really important. But it's going to cause a lot more drama in most programs. And on top of that, it's going to be really difficult keeping, from a financial standpoint, guys on the roster. And then it's going to also be really in practice gym. How are you gonna balance 30 guys on your roster?
That's true.
In a practice gym.
I mean,
run a practice.
And then you got to think about the repercussions for years to come. It's not just going to be that huge roster the 1 year. There's all the people that are getting this extra year now. You know what I mean? So you're thinking it could be 2 years in the future too. We got a 35-man roster. You know.
Yeah, and
the gym.
No, and obviously at Hawaii, it's going to be a big issue for you guys. But I know plenty of other programs that are going to have issues with. Okay, who do we cut from our roster? And the reality is it's going to come from the setting position, the middles position, because those positions is usually that get cut the first, is the bottom setters, bottom middles. Coaches always like having arms on the outside on their roster. So it's going to be, those are for sure going to be the positions that are released first.
Yeah, for sure. We have 5 setters and I think we don't have any middles coming in, so I think we're the same. But so I think that people are going to find different ways to keep guys in the program. You see a lot of alumni coming back, helping coaching staff, manager staff. I'm sure they're going to make some new roles for the players to kind of be involved. Players that wouldn't necessarily be high in the depth chart, wouldn't see a lot of starting time, but would still great for the team, great for the program. It may be kind of just a manager job or video job or just some type of job to keep these guys in the program. Because they mean so much to them.
And those conversations are always the toughest, I know, for coaches to have. Our dad's a coach, and he's had to have similar conversations. Just from club volleyball perspective, I know that he's had some athletes that he's had to speak with and kind of change their role on the team. But at a collegiate level, it's really – you have 4.5 scholarships. You have to be really careful about how you spend that, and who you're bringing in the program is really important. And so it's a difficult thing to say to a guy who's fifth-year senior who's been there and been one of the leaders in your program. But at the end of the day, you need to be moving the program forward. And you need to be thinking what's best for the program. In my opinion, it's not. I would find it difficult to justify holding 28, 29 guys on a roster.
One thing we haven't thought of is how many lockers. How many lockers do we have in our locker room?
I think we got 18 or something. 20.
How are guys supposed to be? There's no way they're gonna be 30 no way that teams can supply 30 lockers in a locker.
Bust out the shoe boxes. I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll see.
I mean, just something to kind of think about. As more information comes out, we'll know more. Something to discuss, some food for thought there. So, to the main man himself, Erik Shoji. We're going to bring Erik Shoji on this show. As we said before, talking about his life, talking about the volleyball. Ladies and gentlemen, the man, the myth, the main libero, Erik Shoji. Erik, thanks for having you on the show. Why don't you say hello to everyone for us?
Hi, everyone. It's Erik Shoji.
Erik Shoji.
I don't know what else you want to know. I'm a libero and I play for Team USA.
Go team. Go team. So first thing we want to talk to you about is you had a year and a half in Russia. You just finished playing. We want you to kind of talk about the culture shock when you first got into Russia and the league and something that just kind of hit you, like any crazy stories you have about that.
Ooh, well, okay. So I've played 3 seasons in Russia now. I've played 1 in Novosibirsk, which is like really far east in Siberia. And then I've played 2 with Fakel Volley, which is my current club. And I'm going back for a 3rd season. And I guess, it is a big culture shock, especially coming from Hawaii. I mean, 1, the weather is like insane. Coming from Hawaii, it's like 80 and sunny every day. And then I went to a winter where Fahrenheit, it was probably like around 0 every single day that my brother and I were there because I was playing with my brother. And granted, we're not like outside that much, but there were points where like I had to walk to his apartment or like walk from the car to the gym. And like, you don't even realize at those moments that it like sucks. Like it's so cold that you just can't get used to it. So like, that was one thing. And then I think the second thing was that Russians, and there's a long history of like why this happens, but they don't show like positive emotion. So they don't smile, they don't laugh. And my brother and I were actually asked, like, why do you guys smile so much? Like, why do you laugh? Like, you look stupid when you laugh.
Am I a joke to you?
Yeah, like, and it's like this long history of like Soviet Union, like people don't show emotion because if they showed emotion, then they were like tracked more and like people thought they were strange. And they actually told us like they grew up like being told that if you smile and laugh a lot, you look dumb, like you look stupid. Jeez. So I think like between that and like the weather, it was just like this huge shock that I'm used to now. But like my first season, it was like pretty rough with those 2 things. And then volleyball wise, it's just like this like brute force kind of league. I played in Germany, Austria, Italy, and Russia now, and it's just like a completely different ball game there where you serve as hard as you can, you spike as hard as you can, and you try to block. And that's basically what the volleyball is. Because, I mean, you're not going to play a ton of defense with these hitters, and you're not going to pass that well considering the kind of serves are coming. So it's a lot of high balls. So I guess those 3 things were like shocks to me. But I guess
what's the gnarliest serve you faced?
Ooh, this season, I feel like I've faced like most of the hard servers in the world at this point. I guess this year in Russia,
Grozer was with you guys, yeah?
Sorry?
Grozer was in – he was playing in your guys' league this year.
Grozer was there. I only played against him once. And I don't think he went off that game, so I'm going to hold off on that one. Ooh, there's a lot of tough servers. I feel like Poletayev, the lefty, has one of the hardest serves. It's like
how fast is that coming?
It's like consistently a 70-mile-an-hour lefty hook.
Oh, jeez.
Serve that you just like hope to get up.
It's like digging, yeah.
Sorry?
Is it mostly like kind of like digging? I feel like when you're facing these high-level serves, I mean, if they're on, you're playing defense back there and just popping it up and giving your team
exactly. I mean, that's a lot. That's what our coaches tell us, like just play defense. Your mindset as a passer completely changes from, nail this pass to put this on the 10-foot line in the middle of the court kind of thing. And that's like pretty rough for me. I hate I'm just a perfectionist when it comes to passing. So it's like, it's really tough for me to change that mindset. But I will say, like, we played Perugia once this year in Champions League, and they have, Leon, Antanasievich, Plotinsky, who's a Ukrainian with a lefty hook serve. I would say that they were one of the tougher. So we also played like Kazan, which with Ingapet and Mikhailov. So it's like, I don't know.
Jeez.
Take your pick. Take your pick.
That's wild.
So as you mentioned, you're facing the top servers in Leon. So would you say, I have two questions to this. Leon would probably, is that the toughest serve you face? And the second question would be, when his serve is coming, he has a 40+ inch vertical, 6'9", cannon of an arm. So it's not only coming hard, but I feel like it's also coming down and tailing. That's gotta be
so
nuts.
I think Leon, the maybe the silver lining with Leon is that normally he has pretty good spin on the ball. It'll be a 76 mile an hour, perfect top spin. So when that happens, it's kind of just about like bodying it up, and you're not necessarily worried about the float on it. So I think, what was the second part of your question? I mean, it's definitely a top 5 serve.
Yeah.
But if you can like just get in front of it, it's not one of those that's necessarily going to float on you. When he does, it's like an ace for sure.
Yeah. Who's number 1? You said top 5. Who's number 1?
Could be somebody
That's
on
such a
your
hard question. I'm trying to think like through every team. I mean, there's so many. I can't name them. I mean, like Matt Anderson has one of the toughest. Zaitsev, Leon, Grosjean.
I mean, serving is too like really like about the day. I feel like it's how they're playing that well. If they're just feeling it, then they're going back and just reeling from the service line. And
absolutely.
I think it really depends on the day too.
The last game I was there before everything shut down, we're playing. We finished 6th in the league regular season, and we played the 7th place team in playoffs. And their outside went off for 8 aces, like some of the most ridiculous serves that I've ever seen. And he switched zones. Like we had no film of him from like a different zone, just like a gnarly serve. So it just, there's so many good players out there that you don't necessarily hear of that can go off. And that's like one of the scary parts about, volleyball. I mean, it's good in the sense that there's so many good players, but it's like 8 aces from this player is like unheard of.
Yeah.
So I can't answer that question, like who's the hardest serve, because there's like so many.
Yeah, the other factors. Yeah, there's so many, like how they're feeling that day, on and off. Sometimes it's just working, sometimes it isn't. But so
absolutely,
you were considered, if not the top libero, one of the top liberos in the world.
We say you're the top libero.
We say you're the top libero in the world.
If you ask us, it's no question.
So you see how it is. You hear all the stories, or not. I mean, I guess there's not a lot of stories about volleyball, but within the volleyball community, you see a lot about how the money system works, and liberos are the last, and job wise, it's that way also. And you're considered, again, in our opinion, the top libero in the world. How hard is it, even for yourself at first? Now I'm sure it's a lot easier, but how hard at first was it to kind of make a living and kind of get into the scene where you're having sustainable income?
Yeah, I think, I guess I'm fortunate in the sense that I never thought about money that much, or was like concerned enough to, consider another option. So I feel lucky with that, but it was tough. I mean, I'll be honest with you guys. My first contract was on a lower team in Germany, and I made $15,000 for the season. So that's obviously not like sustainable for a lifetime, but my goal was obviously to move up. Play with the national team was like a huge incentive. And then once you kind of can be with the national team, or you're going to play super well within your league, you can kind of move up and make more money. I would say the last, couple of years in Russia have been a good salary for me, but it is tough. I was lucky to find that first job, and then from there it kind of got a little bit easier throughout the years.
Okay. Yeah, cause you hear that about all volleyball. It's kind of moving up and building up, kind of in the ranks.
Yeah. And so for me, like when I watch you, I watched you really like seriously watch your play since you were at Stanford. That was kind of like youngest part of my career, or near the youngest part, and you always seem to be very self-corrective, and that you like to be really coaching yourself almost. And I think a lot of players, especially when you get to the professional level, I talked with Micah Christensen about this actually a couple of weeks ago, and he was saying at the professional level, it's really more of a peer relationship with your coaches. So I wanted to ask you, how do you handle coaches who want to kind of overcoach in situations? Because it feels to me that you appreciate the coaching, but you don't want them over the top of you. And what is the communication line between you and the coaches like when they try to overstep at times?
That's a really good question. Again, I feel lucky that I haven't had a coach that does that. If, there are times where I feel like coaches I'll be taking reps and they want to comment on every single pass that I take. And that's really, it's almost annoying, I'll be honest, when someone's like, move your feet there, angle there, like every single pass, when it's like bam, 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 bam. I think that's really tough. But I think it's important as a player to establish a relationship with your coach as best as you can, to be like, hey, Joe, like, I feel like I don't need a comment every single time. And there's a way to go about it where you can just be honest with them without acting like you're better than them.
Yeah.
And I think I have that with my current coaches in Russia as well with the USA staff, where I can just be like, hey, I'm thinking too much right now. Like, let me just get this back somehow on my own. And then next week, let's work on it, or something like that. So it's just all about communication. And, you don't want to like be forceful or like yell back at your coach. It's just about, maybe after the practice, being like, hey, I don't need that much, or I don't want that much in a certain way. So I think you have to kind of feel it out. But I feel like I do a pretty good job of that with the coaches that I have.
No, that's what I was going to ask, is like, because when you see Russian coaches on TV, it's very stern-faced. Any depiction of any Russian in any movie is very stern-faced. So the interactions with them, that was my question, and you kind of answered that. Was how is that? Is it similar in the U.S. or is it more difficult? But I think you answered that a little bit.
I've played 3 years in Russia now, and I have never had a Russian coach. I've had a Bulgarian coach, and I've had an Italian coach. Okay. So they're not quite the same as Russian. I'm not going to speak because I don't really know about Russian coaches that well. But from the 2 coaches I've had, I would say they're more towards the American style than the Russian, just like stern-faced yelling at people, which isn't always the case for Russians. But I felt good with the coaches that I've had. So I feel lucky with that, yeah.
Last question before you let you off here. For the young, ambitious volleyball players out there, would you give any advice into making it and working your way into the national team?
What are the keys in their development? What would you say the keys are in order to reach that goal for a lot of younger kids?
For the national team you're talking about?
Getting eventually to the national team.
Yeah, Well, I'll first off, I'll say, like, not a lot of people make the national team. So if you don't, like, that doesn't mean you're a failure. Like, there's so many players with careers in volleyball that aren't on the national team that it's actually a surprising number. If you look at, like, the transfer list every year, it's like, personally, I don't know a lot of the players that are playing overseas. So it's not like a failure if you don't make the national team. But when it comes down to it, it's just about your work ethic and, honestly, your talent. You have to get in the gym. You have to work, get the reps that you need to improve your skill. That's pretty, like, a brutally, honest answer. Like, you just have to simply grow your game to the point where you're seen and improve enough to where your skill is on that level. If not, like, you can still go overseas, you can still play professionally, but you might not get the call for the national team. I think it's a combination of, like, timing, luck, and skill.
Okay. No, for sure.
Sure. Eric, thank you so much for being on the show. Let's give a round of applause to Eric here. Thank you so much. Thank you. First time talking on Zoom.
Stay safe, Eric.
I know.
Everybody,
you guys too.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank
Ladies
you so
and gentlemen, Erik Shoji. Well, that was definitely pretty interesting. I did not – I mean, I knew Russians were pretty straight-faced or poker-faced, but I didn't know they were not allowed to smile or anything.
There's about like 2 weeks ago, I pull up my Instagram, and this time there's crazy stuff all over TikTok. I have it all. I just scroll through crazy stuff. But the one thing that made me really laugh is I'm scrolling through, and I see this picture of a lion. The headline is Putin releases lions through the streets of Russia to keep people home. And and that's when we brought Eric on, that's the first thing I'm like, there's no way they did that. But when he was talking to me, he was telling me that Putin wasn't doing that, and that was totally fake news. So I wish it was real. That would have been awesome.
That sounds awesome.
The stereotype, but it wasn't.
From the stories we hear from Rado, who tells us all the time, that would seem pretty real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rado makes Russia sound cool.
So thank you guys all for listening. Before we sign off today, we would just like to give a major announcement. We are going to be starting giveaways. This includes USA gear, Hawaii gear, a lot of giveaways. The first thing we will be handing out is an official USA team member USA jacket. Now, we will be posting how to win this jacket on our Instagram page. So make sure you follow us and make sure you keep up to date on all our posts, because that thing can be going quick. Again, this is an official USA team member jacket here. So we'll be posting all the information on our social media. So make sure you subscribe, like, and follow us. That is it for us today. Out of System. Joe Worsley, thanks for being here.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate
Max,
it.
thanks for being here, buddy.
De nada.
This has been Out of System. Thank you all.